Hey, this is Armando Best in Boxing. Welcome to another episode covering what is going on in the world of boxing today. Today is Wednesday, May 29th, 2024, and we got a big fight weekend coming up. But before we get to that, I want to start off this show with the BobFather. This man is a legend, and here is why. Stand by.
God's word of disgrace. Why, absolute disgrace. I really feel sorry for just, I thought he won the fight, but those so-called were ridiculous. And that's the lesson. I will never ever allow an American fighter to come here with his ridicule scoring the fight. Those scores were ridiculous.
Bob is classic. The best part of this is the looks on everyone's faces. You gotta love Eddie. The look on Eddie Hearn's face is classic. But for me personally, I used to work. For those that don't know, I worked for Top Rank for 8 years. So that was under Bob was my boss. Bob signed my paycheck for 8 years. So I'm very familiar with Bob. To me, we always within the Top Rank people that I know, we always call him the BobFather. Bob's classic. He's a super intelligent man. He could even at his age. He can run circles around the best of them, intelligence off the chart, and he can go from zero to angry in a second. It is crazy to see. If you've ever seen it back in the day, I heard he was even worse. I mean, I saw him when he was in his 80s, late 70s, 80s, and he could take on anybody and make anybody, quiver, because he's just such an intimidating dude when he wants to be. So to watch him go off in the ring like he was, it was classic, and the look on everybody's faces. So the gentleman on the far left with the blue sports coat on and the brown shoes, his name is Brad Jacobs, and he is the man behind the scenes. For those who don't know, he basically makes sure logistically everything happens. So everything runs through Brad. Super good guy, just recently got in the Hall of Fame. And the look, for me personally, the look on his face is hilarious. This one is like, this is classic Brad, like, oh God, what is Bob doing? But that's all in good fun. Bob is a legend in the sport, and he can, at this point, do whatever he wants, and people have to put up with it, because he's a man who survived through one of the toughest sports in the world, in boxing, and he's thrived, and he's had more champions than I believe any other promoter in the history of boxing. And the fact that DAZN had the balls to give Bob the mic is classic. And this is what you get when Bob is pissed. So yeah, that's how we'll start off this one. But it was I was cracking up when I saw this video, because this is total Bob. If you don't know Bob, this is Bob. This is Bob when he's pissed off. So and actually this is a tame Bob when he's pissed off, but he's a good guy nonetheless, and it's just classic to watch Bob. So moving on, we're gonna kick off this show with Canelo news. So Canelo this week has vacated his belt, his IBF belt. He holds all the belts in the 168-pound division, vacated his IBF super middleweight title. He was ordered to fight William Scull. And you're like, who? William Scull is a Cuban fighter who fights out of Germany after he left Cuba. He went through the Cuban school of boxing, the amateur program there, and he is 22-0 as a professional. He has 9 knockouts. It's a 40% knockout average. He is definitely not a knockout artist. He is a technical fighter. He is someone who deserves a shot at this point in his career. That's according to the IBF. And so they had ordered Canelo to fight William Scull. He worked his way up the rankings, and he has the mandatory. He's basically a club fighter out of Germany, and he fought in the United States for the first time. He won. And so that put him in line for the mandatory for Canelo's belts. And so now he's the mandatory. Canelo decided he's got better options and doesn't need to hold the belt. So he vacated. It's a good move for Canelo to vacate and move on to much bigger paydays, especially with what is being offered to him to fight Terrence Crawford. He's definitely has bigger paydays. I think in a way it is good for him to vacate and open up that belt, because I feel that, say if Skull fights for it and he wins and he is the champion and holds that belt, that opens the opportunity for David Benavidez, who at this point deserves a title shot. He's held the 168 pound belts twice in his career. Lost them both times not in the ring. Once on the scales, and then once because of a failed drug test. And he has since seemingly turned his focus back to boxing and has had stellar performances and deserves a shot at the title. So hopefully down the by the end of this year, Benavidez can get a shot at that IBF title and get a belt, and then hopefully eventually we can see David Benavidez versus Canelo. I am not holding out hope that we will see Canelo and Benavidez fight. I don't think it doesn't seem to be anything that Canelo wants. Unfortunately, and at this point, he's the cash cow. He can do pretty much what he wants when he wants to. He's the one in control, and he has the ability to not fight him if he doesn't want to. It's definitely a fight that we all want to see. It's definitely a fight that I think Benavidez has earned at this point, and I don't know if we're ever going to see it, just because Canelo doesn't need it. He doesn't need it. If it's about money, if it's about legacy, he's fought all the best guys. And is it really going to affect him? I don't think so. Long term, it will not. Once he's retired, people will forget about it, and they'll just, talk about it in the past tense. Wow, imagine if we would have got that. Similar to I always wanted to see Roy Jones fight Mike Tyson. I look back, and at the time, it looked like it was possible, but obviously it didn't happen. So IBF picked Skull as the next mandatory, and Canelo said no way. So we'll see what happens with the IBF title fight, and then we'll see what happens with Canelo and who he picks. Word on the street is that they're pushing heavy to have him fight Terrence Crawford this year. Terrence obviously has a fight coming up here in a couple months on a big card in the United States, which he is headlining, as he deservedly should headline. And so we'll see after that fight. There could be an announcement for Canelo versus Crawford if the money's big enough. I can't imagine Canelo fighting for anything less than $200 million, and at that price tag, he's going to have to fight in the United States, because it's pretty standard. A lot of people don't realize that when fights go outside the United States, and this is in terms of pay-per-view revenue, the revenue drops about 25%. And so if it's about making money with this Riyadh season, then to put $200 million to Canelo and another say $100 million to Crawford, or $80 million, or whatever it's going to be. It's a ridiculous amount of money to put down. They have the money to do it, obviously. I would imagine that he wants to be able to recoup some of that. I mean, you're talking, you need a $2 million buy plus for this fight. I mean, it has to be up there with the Pacquiao Mayweather card or Mayweather McGregor card, in order to attempt to get his money back. If they have it in Las Vegas, they can drive ticket sales through the roof, and it would generate a significant amount of money on the gate. Right now, Mayweather Pacquiao has that title live gate for Las Vegas, and I think Crawford or Canelo Crawford could challenge that if they do have it in Las Vegas. And really, Vegas is the only place where they can get those ridiculous ticket prices to help turn a profit on something to where they're going to be spending $300 million when it's all said and done on promotion, on fighter salaries. Remember, you have an undercard as well, so it's going to be a ridiculous amount of money to get these two guys in the ring. Is it possible? Yeah, because the ridiculous amount of money is over there in Saudi Arabia, and we will see if they're able to get the deal done by the end of this year, and then we'll see Crawford step up from 154 in his next fight to 168, and see what Crawford is capable of doing at that weight class.